Hello everyone, this is Defense Politics Asia. The Russian offensive, the winter offensive, I can now confirm that is officially underway. There has been a few of these false alarm. When I was looking at the different attacks that is happening across the front line all at the same time, and a few of them seems to be the false alarm. But this time around, with the capture of two different settlements and various very important Ukrainian defensive fortification and positions, we can pretty much confirm that the Russians are definitely on the offensive right now. And so I would just want to go through a few of these for those that are, just to keep up to date of what is happening right now in Ukraine, for those that are not, following the Ukraine war on a daily basis, like, many of the followers that are following DPA. So just to for people to catch up. And there is a few major offensive actions. It's mostly over at, so currently there is this Kupyansk Front. There's one currently happening around here. There is a static warfare, there is a positional warfare over at the Kreminna Front, and then there is a Russian somewhat of an offensive. It seems to be offensive, but it's not the main push over at the Bakhmut Front. And then there's a main attack, another main offensive over at Avdiivka Front, a major like a positional but it's still offensive, something a bit similar to the Bakhmut Front over at the Orikhiv sector. And there is also another major offensive currently happening over at the Donetsk Front around the Marinka Novomohadivka region. So I just go through a little bit of this so you can kind of like get up to speed. So we go into the Kupyansk Front. So this is the Kupyansk Front. Currently, the Russians have been attacking in this area in some sort of like a very it's like a pincer, but it's not really a pincer because it's a bit stretching it to call it a pincer. But while the Russians are currently actually attacking Sinkivka and drawing a lot of Ukrainian attention at this region here at Sinkivka, this is the Kupyansk Front, by the way. This is the Kupyansk Front, and Kupyansk city is here. So as they draw the attention here, suddenly the Russian actually launched a major offensive in this area here at Kreminna. And this offensive operation came as a surprise even to me, as it came out of nowhere, and it has been really successful. So in the latest report, we have the Russian forces already broke through, taken Kreminna, and has been confirmed by the Russian Defense Ministry. They have announced the capture of Kreminna officially, and from this position, the Russian forces also attacked southwestward towards Berestove over here, and they are also pushing northward towards the southern edge of Kotelyarivka, and which is over here. So this is a very significant. I have covered in the latest frontline changes report. You may want to check it out over at the DPA War channel. This area here is a high ground over in the south of Kotelyarivka, and so this is actually very significant. It would basically signal a very quick capture of Kotelyarivka if the Ukrainians are unable to counterattack to retake the high ground over this position. And the Russian forces also put Berestove into a lot of pressure with this push in the south of Kreminna. So this is actually very significant in my opinion. And this one of the more important things that it seems to be you may not be seeing it is that there is this highway around here, and according to Ukrainian sources, the entire highway, Russian sources, the entire highway so far has been taken from around the Kreminna region all the way to Novoselivsky. So this is actually pretty significant in that sense, and there is not a lot of settlements around this area here. So the Russian forces, after capturing Berestove, they can go straight to Pischany, Terbaivka in two directions, and the entire Ukrainian lines is going to be stretched very, very badly. Another one of this major frontline region is over at Kreminna. This is actually not part of the offensive action. There is some offensive action coming towards Terny and Yampolivka region, with the Ukrainian forces pushing back really, really hard. But the Russians didn't seem to have a way to penetrate through. So this is not considered part of this very big offensive, because there's no breakthrough. And yeah, we wouldn't be able to tell if it's an offensive or is it just a positional warfare based on just the daily reports. So we're just not going to look too much into it. Part of the offensive, we are also seeing the Russians trying to put a lot of pressure on Bilohorivka, drawing your attention into this direction. The Russian forces are also doing a lot of sporadic attacks towards Bakhmut, Sperne, and they even captured Vasily in this region here. They are pushing Razdolivka, and all these attacks come, and also probably in this area here near Berestove, and all these attacks is very sporadic. Is just to harass the Ukrainian forces, stretching them into having to push left and right, go here and there, trying to figure out where the Russians are trying to push. So this is actually quite disturbing. You know, if you are the Ukrainian command, you will be wondering whether if you should put attention on Siversk, particularly when they do not. That's when the Russians captured Vasily, and this puts the Ukrainians into a quite difficult position. They have to take care of such a big farmland around this area here. But we shall see how this goes. And then one of these major offensive operations that has been ongoing even before winter is at the Bakhmut Front, and the Russians are pushing very softly, I would say, in these multiple directions. So this is Kodyamivka, Andriivka, Klishchiivka, Ivanivsky, Bodanivka region, Kromove region, and Hryhorivka. All these are more positional than an real offensive operation. So they are attacking from time to time, but it's not like a concerted effort, like they must capture certain position by certain timing, or there's some very strong combined arms operations that determined to capture a certain position. It doesn't feel like that way. They are just slowly grinding away. So you can put it that way. We can use this colloquial term of just grinding. The Russian forces at Bakhmut Front is mainly on the grinding operation. They're just grinding away at the Ukrainian forces, and that's pretty much what they do. And in the latest report, we also see the widespread use of Lancets, and this has been the case for Lancet drone. Is this is a military drone that is meant to do suicide, and it's a very powerful. They can even take out tanks, and these drones has been operating pretty much very actively. We have near daily, or if not daily, geolocation of video footages showing Lancet drones in action. And even in the latest report over the past 24 hours, we see 5 attacks just on Bakhmut Front, and these are the ones that was captured on video footage. There's probably a lot that is not on video footages, so that's very important to note. And the other major part of this I would say winter offensive by the Russians is over at the Avdiivka Front. And in this area here, the Russian forces is pushing in the north at towards Novobakhmutivka, Charitine region, in the Stepove region. They are putting pressure in the north. They are pushing somewhat over in the eastern part from Kayamka and Krutabalka. This is this area here they are attacking, but it seems to be a lot more like a lure. It's like a diversion to make the Ukrainians very confused where they should focus the front line is. And then the main push is actually from the south. Currently they have entered into Avdiivka directly, into the suburb of Avdiivka, and we can officially declare the start of the battle of Avdiivka from this point onwards, because the Russians basically have entered Avdiivka itself. So, and the Russians are also pushing over in the Spartak-Opitne region. They are pushing at Zhivane, Tonenke region, Pervomaisky, and Nevelsky. And this offensive operation is going to be very difficult for Ukrainian forces, because there's only one main road going into Avdiivka, which is off Loshtokine, and through this junction at Olivka towards Tonenke, and this is the main road into Avdiivka. There's only one road, and the Russian forces can easily cause a operational encirclement if they decided to make a very serious push and capture Badaichi, Semenivka, Olivka, Tonenke, or Giverny. These are just a chain of these settlements around this area here. Any two of them falling would means the operational encirclement of Avdiivka. And the Russian forces seems to either are trying but failing, or they are not trying because they want to keep the road open and cause this to become Bakhmut number 2. Because in Bakhmut, the Battle of Bakhmut, what happens is that the Wagner forces that was fighting for the Russians are deliberately, keeping a path, an exit route open, and this caused the Ukrainian forces, who are more sensitive towards losing grounds, to pump in a lot of forces and reinforcement into defending Bakhmut, and cause unnecessary losses, heavy losses at Bakhmut, just to defend the city, which was a lost cause because of how the envelopment was happening around the Bakhmut city. We are now seeing the same thing over at Avdiivka, and Ukrainian forces has been badly encircled in this area for some time already. You can see this pincer over here. This has been ongoing for a long time, and the Ukrainian forces consistently keep sending reinforcement into Avdiivka. But it's only the recent 2 weeks or 3, it seems like they are struggling to send in sufficient reinforcement, weapons or ammunition or equipment into Avdiivka city. It could be something to do with the grinding that was happening over the past half a year, where the Russians took over the initiative from the Ukrainians after the end of the Ukrainian counteroffensive, and the half year of grinding has now taken its toll. The Russians has expanded their capability in terms of air strikes, in terms of drone strikes, and we are seeing more new weaponries coming into actions, new versions of artillery system, new tanks, new BMPs, and the Ukrainians do not have this benefit of reinforcement and resupply, not even close to what the Russians have. And I think this contributed a lot to the inability of the Ukrainians to continue to hold the line at Avdiivka, and we are starting to see the line cracking. And particularly the lines have broken very badly over at this southern part. This area here, this southern part is supposed to be one of the heaviest, most fortified, most defended place. It has fallen, and also around this industrial area. So this industrial area fell first, but it is this southern part that caused the Russians to be able to penetrate huge distance into Avdiivka city itself, which is one of the big ones. Another one that happens over the past 24 hours was the fall of this fortress east of Opitne, and this one is another sign of the Ukrainian forces have to abandon the front line because they just can't hold it. Another breakthrough is the collapse of the front line is over in the south of Kayamka region, and this area here shouldn't have fall because there was a river or some kind of valley that was protecting. They are overlooking the valley, and it is difficult for attackers to go through, but it fell. So that is actually quite bad. So these are the few areas over at Avdiivka that the lines broke. So the lines have collapsed, and collapse doesn't mean that they lost the battle or they lost the war, but it's just that first line of defense, or the main line of defense has collapsed, and the Ukrainian forces will have to go to the next line of defense, or to create the new line of defense behind in order to continue the fight. So we shall continue to monitor and see how this goes, but the Avdiivka offensive is ongoing, and with the breakthrough over in the south, this is going to distract the Ukrainian forces a lot, and we might start to see the Russians making some push in some other directions to put more pressure on the Ukrainian forces in order to not allow them to send reinforcement into Avdiivka city itself. So this is something that we should take a look. And another one of these major push is over and this Marinka, very close to Avdiivka, over in the south western part of Donetsk city. So this is Marinka, where the Russians only recently just captured, and they are now currently putting a lot of pressure over at Novomikhailivka. and they're pushing in this direction. They're also hitting westward from this area to hit the highway. The Ukrainians are defending, so it's not going to be easy, but this is one of the offensive happening. They are also putting pressure on Boyeda. They're pushing towards Georgievka from two sides, north and south of the water body, and they are currently also putting pressure on Krasnohorivka. And the main push is going to be in this direction towards Georgievka, because breaking Georgievka is going to put Konstantinivka on some weakness. It's going to put them at risk. And Boyeda is also one of these major settlements that the Ukrainians are holding at all costs, particularly over at also Novomikhailivka. Novomikhailivka is almost going to be three-quarter encircled. So this is putting a lot of pressure on the Ukrainians, as the Russians are already in the southern line, southern outskirt of Novomikhailivka, as well as eastern outskirt. And further up north, the Russians are making offensive actions in the north, trying to close this and put this into a almost total encirclement of Novomikhailivka. So this is currently happening, and even Ukrainian sources are claiming that the Russians are trying to put them in a pincer movement. And while this is currently happening, where the Ukrainian forces are putting their attention into Novomikhailivka, the Russian push west towards the highway between Konstantinivka and Voleda. So this highway is a very vital lifeline for the Ukrainian forces to supply Voleda. So we shall continue to monitor and see how this goes, but this is the strategic situation over at the Donetsk Front. And so otherwise, there is some positional battles around the Velika Novosilka sector in the Zaporizhzhia Front. So for those that do not know, so this is Zaporizhzhia city, this is the Zaporizhzhia Front. So this is the Donetsk Front, this is the Avdiivka Front, and then this is the Bakhmut Front and Siversk Front around here. So Zaporizhzhia Front is a very, very long front line, and so we break it into 4 different sectors. And the Velika Novosilka sector is the one of those currently that is seeing some battles. Pretty positional. Is not it's not part of the main offensive operation that the Russians are currently doing, but is contributing in terms of diversionary tactics. It does draw attention of the Ukrainians away from the major front lines, and with the Russians making some sporadic attacks at Uruzhaine, at Staromayoske, sometimes at Rivnopil, sometimes at Prione, sometimes at western part of Staromayoske, and it just comes here and there, and the Ukrainian forces have to deal with it. And all these diversionary attacks and the sporadic attacks are just there to keep stretching the Ukrainian forces and force them to invest in every single front line, and which something that the Ukrainian forces are starting to struggle to do, because a lot of the equipment has been destroyed due to the failure of the counteroffensive. They are now trying to preserve whatever they can, but it's not it is still going to be very difficult to hold on to all these equipments, because they are needed to be used to defend and to fight, to conduct a limited counteroffensive. And every time they go to war, they fight, there is always the chance of losing equipments, and so that's currently happening right now. And then there's another part that is something very similar to Avdiivka. Is over at this Orikhiv sector. So this is Orikhiv city, and this is the sector, the Orikhiv sector. The Russian forces are conducting some kind of positional warfare around this area here in this Ukrainian salient. This is the salient, or the bulge, that the Ukrainians managed to capture during their counteroffensive. But the Russians are putting a lot of pressure in this area here, particularly over in the western part of Robotine, and also at the western part of Verbove. And the Russians are pushing in this direction, and they are holding the line. They are holding the line around the Novoprokopivka region. And it seems to me that they are not very serious at trying to capture ground, and they are very happy to force the Ukrainians to continue to resupply, reinforce, and trying to hold this undefendable line, undefendable salient. To me, it just feels really silly to try to hold this this salient, this bulge, but the Ukrainians really paid a lot of price to capture this ground, and they are not willing to give it up without a fight. And the fight is what they gotten. The Russian forces are putting a lot of pressure on them, and they're using drones, artillery, airstrikes, and just grinding the Ukrainian forces and the reinforcement coming to this region. And it's a very, very depressing situation over at this area here. It's something very similar to the situation at Avdiivka, where the Russian forces had been holding that front line for a very, very long time, forcing Ukrainians to keep sending reinforcement into that salient, into this almost encircled position. And but Avdiivka, now we are seeing the Russians starting to attack. At this front line, the Russians are not yet doing this offensive operation. This is not part of this winter offensive, but they are definitely playing a part in weakening the Ukrainian armed forces. And we're also seeing some probing over at Kupyansk, at Zaporizhzhia or Piatikaki region. We also see probings at Nesteryanka, at Novoporovska. We also see at Merne, at so in Sharif, maybe not Sharifne, but it's just here and there. The Russians are trying to make the Ukrainians guess if the Russians are trying to push harder. And we are seeing some signs like the fighting over in the north of Nesteryanka has entered a second day. So this is going to make the Ukrainian forces very, very nervy, because if the Russians do a probing attack, they attack and they will withdraw. So you don't really need to reinforce further. But if they try to push further, then the Ukrainian forces will have to react to it. And this is what happens over at this Kupyansk sector, where the Ukrainian forces had sent some reinforcement into this area due to the Russian attack over at Zaporizhzhia and Piatikaki. So we will continue to see how this develops, but I don't think the Russians are making serious push in the Zaporizhzhia front. I think the main action is still going to be at the Avdiivka front, the Bakhmut front, which is more positional, and of course currently over at the Kupyansk front. And there is no Russian offensive per se over at Kherson front. It's mainly the operation to just eliminate the beachhead over at Krynky. But it seems also to me that the Russians are not very serious about closing this beachhead. It seems like they are just putting enough pressure, but not enough pressure to put to attack the Ukrainian forces and kill the Marines or the Ukrainian soldiers that is sent to the Krynky across the Dnipro River, but not enough to entirely wipe them out, that the Ukrainians end the entire operation. So it seems like the Ukrainians just keep sending reinforcement into Krynky, and then they keep getting bombarded and taken out by artillery system, airstrikes and whatnot. But they did not send in that infantry assault or the armored assault into Krynky to wipe out the entire Ukrainian forces. Rumors coming from the Russian sources saying that there's only around 80 soldiers, and that is not a lot. The Russian forces clearly have enough forces in this front line to easily do a massive offensive to wipe them out entirely. But it seems like that's not the aim of the Russian forces. They are aiming to keep the Ukrainians invested at Krynky, and to be invested at Krynky means that the Ukrainian forces have to have artillery systems supporting the operation at Krynky. And this is something that we are seeing the Ukrainians do. And they have a lot of artillery system that is supporting the operation at Krynky. And these artillery systems are actively being hunted on a daily basis by Russian drones. And when they are spotted, Lancet suicide drones are sent to it. And the Russians are also launching airstrikes using the fighter jets, fighter bombers, and the Ukrainian forces reacted by sending surface-to-air missile systems into this area, which are also then being hunted by the Lancets. And these are documented by all this video footage that has been released on publicly, and it's a lot. On the daily basis, every single SITREP, there is at least one geolocation of Ukrainian equipments getting destroyed on this northern bank of the Dnipro River, and all these equipments are there to just to support the Krynky beachhead, and the Russians seems to be really happy to keep the Ukrainians there, and keep the Ukrainians very invested, sending for the Ukrainians to keep sending artillery system that is so easy to find, because there is a limit to how far the artillery system can operate. We are talking about maybe 20 kilometers, and within this radius, so we are talking about clear signs of this radius. This is where all the Ukrainian artilleries are going to be, and the Russians just need to send in their drones to just look around this radius, and this is exactly where most of the artillery system, there is a video footage to have video shown of them getting destroyed, is all within this semicircle, and it is just senseless, but it is what it is. The Ukrainian forces operate in this kind of manner that don't make a lot of sense. So, but it is what it is. They want the beachhead, the Russians giving them the beachhead, but in return they are paying a price for it. So anyway, this is the sum up of the winter offensive of the Russian forces that is currently officially underway, and I'm very curious to see how far the Russians can go this time round, and contrasting it with the Ukrainian counteroffensive, and see who actually can do an offensive better. Tentatively, we are still in the early stages of this winter offensive, with frontline settlements getting captured. We shall see how this goes and how this develops. Hopefully this video helps you to get up to speed to what is happening over at Ukraine, and do check out the DPA War channel if you want to monitor this war on a daily basis. Follow the SITREP that's published by DPA, and of course on the main channel, do subscribe, and there will be spillover reports, because there is just too much things happening over in the Ukraine war, and there is also coverage of the geopolitics surrounding the Ukraine war over on this main channel. And thank you for watching. Do press the like button, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next update.